So as we go into November, I have to say that I'm a little more excited than I was about 3 months ago. I mean, I think the Republicans have a chance of holding on to the White House. I think we're going to pick the right candidate in our party to go into this election. I think the Democrat extended primary fight could be to our benefit, but it still, I think, is the Democrats to lose, just based off of history and also based off of public opinion right now toward the Bush administration. The economy, that's the last thing we Republicans really want to have be a problem when we have the White House. I think we'd much rather have international affairs and national security be the issue, and it very well could. You don't know in this day and age when a terrorist attack could occur or something could blow up in the world. And if that occurs, then I think, again, John McCain over either one of the Democrats is well positioned to be the person that many people will turn to. This election, like every election, is going to come down to the independent voters. And more people think they're independent. And again, I think as we go into this election, we should have a good contest. I think we're going to have people who are knowledgeable, people who will be able to articulate the issues. I think we're going to have a contrast on many issues for people to pick from. But in the end, I think most people are going to vote for who do they think will be the strongest, the best person to be president, not so much on issues. And while sometimes I'm disappointed with how the electorate goes, I do believe that majority of the time, majority of the folks here, even if I'm in the minority, are probably right, and I'm sure they will be come November. Thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon. It's great to be here. Thank you for the invite, Chris Mooney. Appreciate your efforts in coordinating me being here, and I tell you what, it's an honor to be at the same table with Governor Jim Edgar. I appreciate that opportunity, and Bob, thank you for the introduction. I'm going to take a little bit different path maybe on some of my comments and talk a little bit about my experience with this with the primary season, because I've taken somewhat of an active role in this campaign. I served with Barack Obama for 2 years in the Illinois Senate. I've known him since 2001, and my family and we made a decision early on that we were going to support Barack and do what we could to help him. So we spent, and I say we, my wife Joan and especially my daughter Emily, who is just graduated from ISU in Bloomington and will be going to law school this fall. We've taken a very active role in the campaign, and we started in Iowa and spent a week in Iowa prior to the caucuses. And I had often heard about the caucus process, but until you actually are involved with it, I was absolutely amazed at how it worked and the inner workings of how the caucuses took place. You know, our role in these primaries and caucuses were just basically doing what all the other volunteers do, and that's knocking on doors and making phone calls, and every once in a while I'd be a surrogate and talk on behalf of Senator Obama. But you know, in Iowa the weather was horrible leading up to the Iowa caucuses, and on the day before, well, on New Year's Eve, walking door to door, it was snowing. They had about 3 or 4 inches of snow that they got that day. The weather was down in the single digits and the wind was blowing. And you know, when I was knocking on a door, I got a lot of sympathy from those voters. And they obviously I tried to use that to my advantage as well. But the voters in Iowa were absolutely, because it was the first primary caucus of the season, they were absolutely inundated with mail calls, TV, people knocking on their doors. And what we would do generally is walk during the daylight hours, starting from about 10 till dark, and then go in the office in the evening and start making phone calls. And there, about 2 or 3 days before the actual caucuses, you were very lucky to get 1 out of 10 people to listen to you. They were just, and I did this one gentleman, I had about 3 or 4 people hang up on me, in a row. And this one gentleman was ready to hang up, and I said, listen, don't hang up on me, give me 2 seconds. And there was a pause. I didn't hear a click. And I said, just tell me how many calls you are getting. And he said, I'm getting a call every 5 or 10 minutes in the evening. And I said, do you know why? And he said, well, no, not really. And I said, I have a list of people to call here, and you're on my list, and it shows off to the right here that you're an undecided. I said, all you have to do is say you're supporting Barack Obama, and we'll stop those calls. And we ended up having a long conversation, which was very, very interesting. But from Iowa, we went down. My daughter and I went down to South Carolina. So we went from Iowa to South Carolina. The weather was beautiful down there. It was in the 50s and the 60s. We really enjoyed doing door-to-door down there. And there was I suppose it's just a difference in the geography there, but the people down there were some of the kindest people I'd ever met in my life. And we were in a very impoverished county. It's Sumter County is just west of Columbia, about an hour. We were in Sumter County and Lee County, and again, I was walking in some neighborhoods that I have to tell you, I was in the daylight, I was a bit concerned. My daughter and I, we'd go out. We were pretty much a team, and I walked up the first day we went to knock on some doors. And we pulled in. I was trying to find a place that I could park the car, and across the street from where we parked, there was 2 gentlemen playing checkers out in the yard. And they were on a big wooden board. Gosh, it was the size of this, and it was a homemade board, and they were sitting there. And I walked over to them and introduced myself and handed them some campaign literature and had a nice conversation with them, and was just getting ready to leave. Matter of fact, I was turning to leave, and one of them said, now you be careful. And I turned around and I said, yeah, we'll be fine, And he said, no. He said, you be careful in this neighborhood. And he was dead serious. And so after that, we were even a little more cautious, I think. But in South Carolina, after South Carolina, we went to Minnesota. And actually, I drove home from Minnesota yesterday, coming through Iowa. And we got between Iowa City and Ottumwa, and they'd had a foot of snow. And it was absolutely a disaster. We were stuck on an interstate for about an hour waiting for some semis that had jackknifed. But at any rate, Minnesota was just yet another experience. They have caucuses in Minnesota. So Iowa has caucuses, and in those caucuses you go into a room just like this room, and all your supporters go in one corner, and the other supporters here, and the others here, and the others here. And of course we had a lot of candidates back, during the Iowa caucuses. And then you basically say, you count heads. There's these many Barack supporters and these many Hillary supporters, and they do an initial first count, and then they give about 30 minutes because the undecideds, there was some Biden and Governor Richardson. There were several that were not viable. They didn't have enough to be viable. So then everybody goes out and tries to pick them off. There's 2 roles in a caucus, and because I didn't live in Iowa, I couldn't actually be in that part of that process, but we were corralled into an observer area at that point. But leading up to when the caucuses actually opened up, we were able to really participate. But at that point, there's 2 people that are very important. One they call the corrallers, and they corral and keep your supporters in your corner. They literally built a wall of chairs so you couldn't get out. All right? And then the other people that are important are called the poachers. And the poachers go out and they try to pick off, those undecideds and, get people to come to your corner. What an amazing process.